Today, we're diving into a really fascinating space where cutting-edge tech meets finance. We're talking about how artificial intelligence is completely changing the game for sustainable investing, and we're going to look at it specifically through an Australian lens.
So you want your money to do more than just grow, right? You want it to actually do some good in the world. It's a great idea, but let's be real. Figuring out which companies are genuinely making a difference versus the ones that are just talking a good game, it can feel like searching for a needle in a haystack. A massive, very confusing haystack.
All right, so here's how we're going to break it all down. We'll start with a huge data problem that investors are up against. Then we'll see how AI steps in as a sort of co-pilot. We'll get into 3 specific ways it helps, check out what's happening in Australia, and then finish up by looking at some of the challenges that are still out there.
Okay, first up, let's get right to the heart of the problem, what I'm calling the Sustainable Data Challenge. And here's the twist. It's not about a lack of information. It's about a total and complete avalanche of it.
Just so we're all on the same page, when we say sustainable investing, we're usually talking about something called ESG. It's just a framework for judging companies on 3 things: their environmental impact, their social practices, and their corporate governance. So, everything from carbon emissions and labor rights to how diverse their board is.
And look, the desire to invest this way is massive, but the data, that's the hurdle. To do it properly, you'd have to comb through mountains of corporate reports, endless news articles, and complex data sets for every single company you're looking at. For a human being, it's just a ridiculously huge task. Honestly, it's pretty much impossible. So if you can't handle that data avalanche on your own, what do? Well, that brings us to AI. It's the tool that shifts this whole process from slow and manual to fast and data-driven.
And this is where AI is a total game changer. Think of it like a tireless co-pilot. It provides the raw analytical horsepower to process information at a scale and speed that we just can't, turning all that noise and complexity into a clear, usable signal.
And this really shows you what a huge leap we're talking about. The old way of doing ESG analysis was painfully slow, and you were basically forced to rely on what companies decided to tell you in their own reports. The new AI-powered way isn't just way more efficient. It paints a much bigger and, frankly, a much more honest picture by pulling information from all over the place.
Okay, so that sounds great in theory, but how does this actually work for an investor? Let's get practical and look at 3 very real ways AI is helping right now.
It really boils down to 3 main things. First, it lets you do a much deeper analysis of the data. Second, it's like a super smart detective for sniffing out misleading claims. And third, it helps you build better, more fine-tuned investment portfolios. Let's take a look at each one.
So, first up, deeper data analysis. This is all about moving beyond what a company says it's doing to find out what it's actually doing out there in the real world.
And I mean deep. An AI isn't just reading the annual sustainability report. Nope. It's scanning millions of news articles, it's gauging social media sentiment, it's digging through government filings. And get this, it can even analyze satellite imagery to see if a company's promise to stop deforestation is actually, true. That's a whole new level of accountability.
All right, number 2, and this is a big one. AI is an incredibly powerful tool for spotting something called greenwashing. So what is greenwashing? Well, it's basically when a company puts more effort and money into marketing itself as environmentally friendly than it does on actually being environmentally friendly. And for an investor who wants to make a real impact, that's a huge problem.
This is where AI acts like a truth detector. A company might put out a glossy press release saying, "We're committed to reducing our carbon footprint." But an AI can instantly check that claim against real-world data, and it might find rising emissions or recent news reports about environmental fines. It flags those contradictions that a human analyst buried under paperwork could so easily miss.
And finally, the third big one. AI helps solve that classic investor dilemma: how do you get the positive impact you want without sacrificing financial performance? It does this by helping you build much smarter, more optimized portfolios. And AI can help you strike that perfect balance. It can build a portfolio that's laser-focused on your specific goals, whether that's clean energy or workplace equality, while also making sure it's sound from a traditional financial perspective.
It can even run simulations of future risks, like what happens if a new climate policy is passed, helping you build a portfolio that's not just impactful, but resilient.
So, let's bring this all back home. How does this all apply to Australia? Well, it turns out the country is right on the cusp of a major shift in this area, which makes these AI tools more important than ever.
See, Australia is getting much more serious and structured about green finance. The Australian Sustainable Finance Institute, or ASFI, has created what they call a taxonomy, which is basically just a really detailed rulebook. It defines exactly what counts as a green investment, setting specific limits on emissions for things like energy projects. Now, for an investor, trying to manually check if hundreds of companies fit these complicated rules is a nightmare. But for an AI, that kind of detailed, rule-based work is exactly what it's built for.
But of course, it's not all smooth sailing. This technology isn't a silver bullet, and it's important to be honest about the challenges that still need to be figured out.
There are really two big things to keep an eye on. First, there's a certain irony here. The massive data centers that you need to run these powerful AIs, well, they consume a ton of energy themselves. And second, just like with any powerful new financial tool, we absolutely need clear rules and regulations to make sure it's being used responsibly and ethically.
When you boil it all down, it's so important to see AI for what it truly is. It is not here to replace the human investor. It's here to augment them. It's a powerful tool that does the heavy lifting, all the data crunching, which frees up us humans to do what we do best: make smarter, better informed, and ultimately more impactful decisions.
So, as this technology gets woven deeper into the fabric of our financial world, it's not just about what it can do, it's about what we ask it to do. Which leaves us with the real question. What are you going to demand from the tools that are shaping your financial future? Thanks for joining me.